Here is my homework for lesson number 5 with the pi Pico W. We start with the same little program as before. We input machine and we get sleep. We identify an input pin of 28 and then we create an object here. Create a variable called pot val, which equals the inputs of all that, and then I just simply print out the pot val, which is down here. Right now my pot value, my potentiometer, is all the way to the left, and the lowest number I have here is about 208. So when I turn the potentiometer to the right, of course the numbers get bigger and bigger. And the biggest number I have there is 65535. So to show that, I've written a little graph here. The graph shows the beginning of 65535 and the ending is the smallest number is 208. And I'm trying to graph when the number is really big. I want the value to be 0, and when the x value is really small, I want it to be 100. We can see that here on the graph here. This is just restating this the solution. When my potentiometer is at 208, the homework is to show 100 as a number. When the potentiometer shows 65535, I want it to be the y value to be 0. Paul said that this formula took 2 minutes to complete, and I'm guilty of using just the ratios to try to solve this, and it's taken me a long time to get through and understand this whole problem. And here is how I've solved it. I had to start with this formula right here, y equals mx plus b, which is actually a slope-intercept of a straight line. So this is the formula that I'm going to be working with, and I'm going to keep returning to this little formula here. So we know what the y is, we know what the x is, so let's figure out what m and b is. And of course, m is defined as the slope, so there's the slope right there. And b is actually the y-intercept. So now what we're going to do is we're going to solve for m, and we're going to solve for b. And of course, one way to do that is to come over here to a spreadsheet file. And I've rewritten my little table here. When my pot value is a high number, I want it to show a small number, 0. When my pot value is low, I want it to be 100 or about 100. Now, if you really wanted to see what that looks like, you can actually come to this spreadsheet file, and you can actually create a graph. So if you highlight the numbers here, and you insert a chart, and of course I'm going to select a line, and my line is there, and then of course this is what it looks like. Let's see here. This is what it looks like. It actually has a negative slope here. I know that the x and y are reversed, but it's actually showing the same trend line. So that's how that works. There's also a way to go into a spreadsheet file and calculate the slope very easily. So what you do is you'd come to a cell here, and you'd start your formula with a function called slope. Put a paren in. Then of course it says to show your y data up here. So there's my y data, and then you put a comma, and it shows to show the x data, which is right here. and you put a paren, and there is the calculated slope. So this is a good way to double check or to get a quick number for all those calculations. Now let's see if I can do it longhand here. I want to solve for m. I want to solve for slope. Now slope, m is actually slope, and slope is actually the rise divided by the run. And another way to write that is the change in y over the change of x, which is demonstrated with the triangle there, or the delta symbol, delta y over delta x. Another way to write delta y is y2 minus y1. That shows the difference over the x2 minus the x1, which is the difference between these two here. And then, of course, I just fill in my datas from my little table up here. I can say 100, which is y2, minus 0, so I've written that 0 there, and x2, which is 208, minus my x1, which is 6535, and of course 100 minus 0 is 100. 208 minus 65535 is actually a minus 65327. So I can actually show my slope representing it this way. And if you take 100 divided by minus 65327, that's what this number is right here. That's what the slope is calculated as. So that's pretty cool. Now we want to solve for b. So now we want to solve for b. So I'm going to come back here to my original formula, and I want to insert what I already have and try to solve for b. So y equals the slope m, 100 divided by minus 65327 times the x plus b. So now we want to solve for b. So actually I have my values up here. So if I insert the y as a 0, 0 equals the slope, 100 over minus 65327, times the x value, which is this one here, 65535, plus b. Now I want to get rid of the b, so I subtract b on both sides, and I get this formula here, minus b equals the slope times the x value. Now I have to get rid of the x, so I'm going to actually multiply both sides by a minus 1. And that actually comes out to b equals, you have to put the minus with the parentheses here, because everything in the formula is now the minus, so there's the slope times the x. And so b actually equals 100.31839. Now that I have all of that done, I can actually put this back into my phony formula, and it's going to look like this. So when I want to calculate for y, I do y equals the slope times whatever the value is, which in my phony it's pot value, plus the b, which is 100.31839. So now let's go back into phony and see what that looks like. Right here. Now I have taken I've already have the formulas here, so I'm just going to uncomment them, and I don't want to have this one printed, so I'm going to comment this one out. I have to get these just right. So here is, I created a new variable here, my scale value equals, here's my slope times the x value, which is I've defined right here, plus my b, which is 100.3189. So now when I run this, you can see that I left my potentiometer way off to the right, and because the potentiometer is a little bit off, it's actually a very low number, almost going negative sometimes. So I'm just going to increase that. It just jumps around there pretty good. But basically I'm going to call that a 0. So when I take my potentiometer and turn it all the way to the left so that my x value then becomes as low as possible, which is actually the 308 number, a 208 number, it actually comes out as 99 and a little bit more, which is about 100. And so there is my homework for lesson number 5.